All right, welcome back everybody to a new episode of A Whole New World with me, your host, Jacob New. We're here to put a spotlight on positive things happening in the neighborhood, and, well, community and the neighborhood. I sound like Mr. Rogers. It's giving me my sweater. And developing that positive mindset. So, it is time for everybody's favorite part of the week, the dad joke of the week. So, here it is. How do you stop a bull from charging? You cancel its credit cards. Take that, Ferdinand. Take it. Get it, Ferdinand the bull.
Yes, Ferdinand the bull.
Yeah. So, pretty awesome jokes, I know. We are very fortunate to have Jason Kessler here in the house.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming in, and especially on such short notice. So I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, why don't you let our Facebook and podcast world let a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called 10 Fathoms Consulting, and what we do is we work with individuals, companies, really looking at how to the best way to get into flow. Okay. So, like if when I'm working with an organization, go ahead.
Do you remember what is flow?
Flow. We'll get that.
Okay. We'll get there later.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just to kind of get into the sense of it when we're working with companies, organizations. It's like, how do you produce high performing teams? How do you get really cohesive teams? And then individual wise, it's usually professionals or managers and executives of that sort. That how do we actually lead those high performing teams? And we look at it from a perspective of flow, which if you look, there's like three major definitions that I look at from this. So when you look at one, just the standard definition of flow from like the Webster Dictionary, it's just a steady, continuous stream of something. Okay.
I picture a river. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, exactly. You say flow, you got river, you have traffic, you have blood, you have blood flow, traffic flow, electricity flows. So there's something that's
constantly moving.
That's something that's moving. And then you can look at flow from the positive psychology perspective. Okay. So inside of positive psychology,
I'm not familiar with that
positive.
At all.
You're not okay.
Well, I know positive psychology, but I don't know like their term of flow.
Right. I don't have it memorized, so I'm going to read it.
Okay. Cool.
And this is directly from Wikipedia, so you can look it from there. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the mental state of operating in which a person performs an activity, is fully immersed in a feeling of energized, focused, and full involvement and enjoyment in the process of the activity.
That is a really long definition.
It's really okay.
But in essence, there's a lot of good parts in there that I like.
Yeah, in essence, flow is characterized by complete absorption in what one does, and a resulting loss of one's sense of space and time. Okay, so let me tell you my definition of this. It might be a little bit more concise.
Yeah.
It's the natural, effortless expression of life.
Deep. That's what I got for that. That's real deep.
So your personal self-expression, however you do it, when you are like fully involved, you're being expressed, time disappears, what's going on, that's flow.
No, I think of when you're talking about like losing kind of like sense of your time and your surroundings, is you look up and it's been 3 hours and you've been working on this project or whatever. That's kind of what I'm understanding is
exactly.
flow.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
That's a perfect experiential way of actually saying it. People experience flow when they just lose track of time. Either they're both ways.
Yeah.
Either you get so much done and you look up and it's only been 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or the other side is that you've just lost track of time and you think that it's been an hour and you say it shows up as being 3, you know?
Yeah. Now, in my mind, wouldn't you'd think it's been like only an hour and it's been 3? Is that more of a negative type of flow? Or, I mean, could that depend? Vary?
It could depend. It could depend.
Okay.
So, a lot of it depends on what you're involved in, right?
Uh-huh.
And here's where a lot of what I've discovered is in the studying and working with the individuals and the teams and everything, everybody gets in flow differently and everybody experiences it differently. There's no right or wrong way of doing it.
Okay.
It's just when it's effortless and it's natural, that's when you like, okay, something's good here.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've been taught, and I'm going to put it as it's like factual, but it's probably not everybody has experienced this. Mm-hmm. From the moment we step into school, one of the biggest things that we've get taught is to ignore our ignore our strengths and focus a lot of our weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So not everybody, right? It's like you're really great in, let's say, music. Mm-hmm. Right? But you're struggling in math or some of the sciences. What is the advice that people give you? Where do you need to focus your time and your studying? You need to focus it on the math. You need to spend more time there. Or we punish you. Mm-hmm. You can't do sports now because you're struggling over here in school. Yeah. Right? Though you may be, it's this whole dynamic of you just focus on your weaknesses. And we get developed over the course of school to consistently look at where are we not performing at, right? Versus looking at where we are performing and focus more there.
Yeah. And
then we go into the corporate world and it follows us. You go in, you get a job, you look at you go to your performance review, you get the job, you're doing a good job. Mm-hmm. Right? You get a performance review. It's like, hey, good job. You're great at customer service. Pick your thing, right? Great at customer service. Keep it up. All right. You go to the next one. Great at customer service. Good job. But we really start to need to see some strategic planning coming from you.
But you're in customer service. Okay.
Or project
play more chess.
Yes, we need to. Or it's like, hey, or in my case, personally, is like very creative problem solver.
Yeah.
Right. Get project started, get the team on board. Everything's great, but the follow through is where I lack.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm always being coached. You need to do better follow through. You need to do project management. It sucks. I've tried. Yeah. I am like the worst at project management. But that's what I'm being coached because that's where the weakness is. Mm-hmm. Versus like, hey, let's keep you getting all the projects started. That's where you go because not everybody loves to start the projects.
Yeah.
My wife for instance, you give her a blank sheet or you tell her to start something and it just stops.
Yeah.
It just is.
People have different blocks.
People have different blocks, right? We talk about flow. You got blocks to flow.
Yeah.
Right? My block is when it gets to a point where I'm having to maintain and all of that, right?
Yeah. Finish it out.
It's like, why finish it out? Why can't I transition this over to somebody that actually enjoys closing projects out?
Yeah.
And let me start something else. So there's all of these ways that we can engage inside of what's going on inside of flow.
So what I'm understanding is that the flow and what you're kind of proposing is that people should play just to their strengths. But like, is there a way that we can take our strengths and, like, let's say you don't like, you said you don't like closing. Is there a way to maybe fit that into one of your strengths and to maybe adapt it? Or is that part of kind of what you're saying in the flow?
So this is why when I'm working with teams, it's really we all want to work in a team, because if we're doing it on our own, if you could do the project, everything from beginning to end by yourself, it's probably not big enough for you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's probably going to get a little boring at points, or it's going to get frustrating because you don't have a team to leverage, which is where, when we go in to talk and we work with teams, this is like, so let's build a team that actually suits, that maps onto all of it. So we got somebody that's very people-oriented, somebody that's process-oriented. We have somebody that's very idea-driven.
So it's more of like building a team that complements each other very well.
That's right. And that's the approach that I take when I'm working with when I'm working with my clients and stuff. Is how do you build the team? How do you build your support team personally? Mm-hmm. How do you build your support team personally so that it keeps you in flow? How do you structure your day to keep you in flow? How do you structure your communication so that you know that not only are you in flow, but it's also, how do you have everybody around you be in flow at the same time? And so there's a dynamic when we're looking at from flow, that's in being that everybody gets into flow differently. Mm-hmm. How do you help that? How do you encourage that? How do you develop?
What does that look like? Kind of. But I mean, for everybody, it's very situational, right?
It can't. So yes. So I don't look at skills and specifics.
Okay.
Right. So
how do you help people find their flow? Let's start there. How do you do that?
How do I do that?
Yeah.
I have a couple assessments that I have people take to start with that. That starts that process, and then there is some aspects. I haven't come across anybody that can't tell me this, like, look, when I'm doing X, Y, Z, doing this, I'm really engaged, right? It's when I'm doing all of this other stuff that takes me out. I just wish that I could do this whatever this may be, more frequently. So then we start to customize, look at how do we start to develop that.
It's kind of like just taking an inventory of what really is draining you and what's energizing you, in addition to your assessment, your tests.
So
and what kind of questions, like a question that you might have on that quiz?
So, they're mostly like yes, no, like 1 through 5.
Oh, they are. Okay,
like it's on a scale, right?
I didn't know if they're like open ended or
no, they're not. They're not essays.
Okay, got it. It's like, oh snap.
No. So one of them is like, do you find yourself engaged when you're around people?
Okay.
Or are you, when there's a conflict, do you find that you're looking, on scales like, no, that I totally disagree or I totally agree. Mm-hmm. Do you find that you try to find the middle ground?
Okay.
Right? Or are you somebody that is, do you agree or disagree on that you're process oriented?
Okay.
Right. There's these ways that look.
Steps. Okay. So just kind of like questions that make you think about who you are and kind of what your preferences are.
What your preferences are. Right?
Okay. All right. I'm with it now. Sorry.
I mean, you've done things like Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So it's a similar. My tool is called the Talent Dynamics. Or there's two. There's Wealth Dynamics or Talent Dynamics, depending on what I do. It's a very similar psychometric test as DISC or Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders and things like that. Very similar kind of, where do you fall on the spectrum for this particular question?
Yeah. Okay.
And then based off of that, there's a mathematical calculation. It's like, oh, you tend to go on to this area. So does this sound like where you want? And when you look at it from a profiling system, it's a profiling system, right? Yeah. And that profile is broken up into 8 different profiles. So it has nothing to do with your interests. So are you interested in health? Or are you interested in computers? That doesn't matter in this case. It is, where do you fit best on the team? Are you a promoter? Are you a peacekeeper? Mm-hmm. Are you an analyst? And so that we can start to actually place you in the right positions of the team, so that when that time comes into play, it really starts to look at what, how to engage you at the right time, and when the right need shows up.
Okay.
So your skills, your knowledge, all of that stuff that you've accumulated over doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's all, like, very interesting to me, and just making sure people kind of, like, learn and adapt to their roles, in a sense. Like, because sometimes your strength might not be what you thought.
That's right.
I would imagine.
That's correct.
So, like, is there a lot of, I guess, relearning for people? Like, how?
It sometimes,
or is it
sometimes.
Most of the case people's strengths are kind of what they think?
So I have had a few. Mostly, it's a confirmation. Mm-hmm. I have found most of the time when we initially get the initial engagements, it's a confirmation of what people love to do. It's like, yes, I love doing that type of aspect of my job. Mm-hmm. It's all the other stuff that I don't.
Yeah, all the politics or whatever, Maybe
right.
Some people like the politics.
Well, it's like the best ones are the ones that are very process driven, that are in sales.
Yeah.
So sales typically means you got to be out in the public, you got to go meet, do all the networking. And it's like, I hate doing that, but I love the process of actually getting the sale done. They love the process work. They hate the aspect of going and being with the people, or the vice versa of that. Loves the networking. Wish that they could pass off all of the
process,
the process, all of the documentation, and all of that stuff to somebody else.
Yeah.
And when we go through and we profile it and we're doing the work, the confirmation actually gives my clients power in actually developing the rhythm to their week and to their month and to the cycles that they fall into. And they know that they can actually start to leverage other people on the team as they need it. They can build their team around them to support them for what they're needing to do.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of work that gets involved that we can get pretty deep into that.
Once you get over that task of figuring out what your strengths are and how.
Yep.
It's more over how does this team now work more efficiently?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so how do we work efficiently? How do I communicate?
I think that's a big thing.
Right? It's like, how do I communicate my strengths in a way that you can actually leverage them and know that I may not be the best fit for something that you're you're wanting to do. And it really boils down into trust, right? If you love dad jokes.
Oh, I do. Yes,
right?
I do.
So, somebody that loves dad jokes, you do it so frequently that people trust that if they need something funny, if somebody says, "Tell me a joke," you will have one.
You can pop one off.
You can pop one, and it could be different almost every time, right? So that's a strength that you have, right? You tell that to somebody else, they may not be able to do that.
Yeah,
but doing that every day may not be. I mean, you're not a stand-up comedian, right? No. So you're not telling jokes.
Not yet.
Is that something you want to do?
I don't know. Maybe. I thought about it once a long time ago, but probably not. It's probably not in my mouth.
I can introduce you to a few people.
Okay, that'd be cool.
It would. Yeah. Anyway, there's a comedy place just up here off of a couple streets up over here off of Beltline.
Oh, really? We can talk offline about that. Yeah.
See, this is how I get somebody into flow. I find their interest, and then we start to go that way.
Okay. It all starts with your interests.
It does a lot. So what actually gives you it? What are you interested in? And then, so I look at it, the best analogy that I can think of how to play inside of this concept of flow. Yeah. Think of it as kind of as a radio, right? There's hundreds of genres of music. You don't like all of them.
No, and I don't like the commercials on the radio.
Exactly, so right?
It ruins my flow.
It does.
Yeah.
It's like Pandora.
And then commercials. Like, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the online, plug for Pandora or Spotify.
Yeah.
But it's great because you can cater the music to what you want to listen to, right? And so it's the same thing that I do. It's kind of like tuning in the dials for somebody into their music that they like to dance to, that they like to listen to. Because if you were in someplace else, it's completely off topic. If what you like is hard rock and you're listening to slow country, it's
quite a world of difference there.
It's a world of difference, right? But in the world of how you flow, that's the difference.
Yeah.
The way that you get into flow and the way that I can get into flow can be that drastic.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we tune in? So if we're working in the same, if what I have is classic country, what you have is hard rock, how do we meet in the middle so that we can still get job done?
And like, how do you respect each other's thing,
right? And where we look at is we find common ground, which is part of when we're working with teams and we're working with just organizations and stuff. Yeah. It's actually getting into the purpose, the passions, mostly purpose, the vision, get buy-in across all of that. So everybody has a buy-in to where we're headed. We all know where we're going and when we're going to end up there. Mm-hmm. And however you get there may not be the same way that I get there, and yet we're still going after the same goal.
Yeah.
And so when we build it into that, then we can start to how you get into flow versus how I get into flow, we can meet in the middle and start to actually because we're out to accomplish the same result.
So it's I'm just recapping because I'm just like, hold up, it's been a lot. So figuring out your strengths, then it's figuring out the communication and how do we work together piece. How do we become an efficient, well-oiled machine.
That's right.
And then after that, it's just putting all the pieces together.
It is.
And so, wow. It's a lot of work, but it's a very complex thing for people to get. So...
And when you come from an aspect of how do I get into flow, right? It actually boils down to be pretty simple. Because if you think of all the doing, which is what I've had to train myself over the past 10 years of the how do I have other people discover this? If you only look at are we in flow? At what level are we in flow? Because there's
is it a stream or is it like the Mississippi River?
Well, see, that's the yes.
Yeah.
So if you look at all the levels, you got sitting in a desert where there is no water.
Okay.
So there is no flow.
That's pretty bad flow.
There is no flow.
Yeah.
Right? You can go with a little trickle where there's a little bit of flow, but there's not enough to really get anything going.
Not enough for life.
There's not enough for life. You have a good stream where you can live, but not much for everybody else.
Yeah.
You can go down the river.
You got a couple plants. Yeah.
You got a couple plants, you know, just enough to maybe a little bit extra on occasion to pass off to somebody else, right? And then you got the river.
Yeah.
Which is then there's enough water for everybody.
Okay.
And then you have the fifth one, which is what everybody's scared of, and that's flood.
That's I was going to say it's a class 5 rapids.
Well,
or whatever.
No, it's Dorian coming and attacking Baja. No, but it's flood, and so many people are afraid because when there's so much flow, when there's so
things
much
are just happening.
Things are happening. Like you got opportunities showing up, money is good, team's good, everything. What people are more afraid of is the overabundance that they can't control.
Yeah.
There's too many opportunities and they can't do it. Everybody wants a piece of their time. There's not enough time to do everything. We don't have enough people to do the work that we're getting. Then all of a sudden they contract and restrict themselves because they can handle stream.
Yeah.
But they can't handle because they haven't built the structure.
Yeah.
They haven't built the containment to be able to contain the river. And then you look at a river, they go to the Amazon and it'd be huge.
Yeah. Man. So much water.
I know.
And so all this talk about flow, we're actually going to flow on into a break. Or flow on into a break if you need to. Take a quick break, y'all. So this is Jacob New with A Whole New World, and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to A Whole New World, where we're here to put a positive spotlight on things happening in the community and developing that positive mindset. So, we have Mr. Jason Kessler here to talk about Flow. He is the CEO and founder of 10 Fathoms.
Yep.
Inc., right?
Yeah. 10 Fathoms, yeah.
I forget the Incs and the Incorporate. Oh,
It
that's
is.
the same thing. And so we talked about flow, and interesting, before we left for break, you were bringing up about things that can start to bring us out of flow. And I think there's a number of different things that can cause that. And so I'm curious to hear, so you talked about infrastructure being one. What might be some other reasons for us to come out of our flow?
Well, one is a lot of times it's very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us think that our strengths, we ignore our strengths because it's easy so often, right? Oh, I don't know, developing, one of the hard things is developing software.
Yeah.
I think it's like, it takes me completely out of flow. But there's people that just love it, right? And they don't credit themselves for that skill. My wife is an awesome accountant. She loves numbers, but yet she is like discredits that it wasn't hard work for her to do it. So that's
because it seems easy.
So it seems
doesn't
easy.
seem right.
It doesn't right.
Okay.
And so one of the biggest things is the fear, that uncomfortableness that it can't be this easy.
Is it uncomfortable? Because earlier you said that we focus so much on our weaknesses. Is it uncomfortable because that's what we're used to, is focusing on things that are hard?
That's what I've experienced. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable that so, you probably didn't know, you don't. It's the crutch words.
Yeah.
When we've been raised, it's cultural here in the United States. It's not necessarily cultural everywhere, but here we have to work hard. You go to school, you study hard, you work hard, then play hard.
Yeah.
Often, if work seems hard, then it justifies the pay.
Yeah.
If work's easy, it does something to us, and it's like we don't deserve the pay we're getting because it's really easy for us. I didn't have to do much.
Yeah.
And so we end up restricting and contracting from that and moving away from those easy things and looking for hard stuff, because if it's hard, well, then it's worth the money that we're making.
Yeah.
However, if you look at almost every successful person that's out there, whether it's a Steve Jobs or it's a Mark Zuckerberg or whoever that we can classify financially successful or not, you can go to successful musicians, successful magicians, whatever, right? They do what they do because they're good at it. Mm-hmm. And they build trust in those areas because they're good at it.
Yeah.
And then they get paid and they get rewarded
because they're good at it.
They're good at it. And it typically is because it's easy to them. Mm-hmm. Yet we don't, so many of us don't actually look from that. It's like, well, it's not hard, so I always have to be learning something different. I don't, looking at taking what I know right now to genius level seems to be unrealistic in a lot of ways.
I definitely think that there's some work that you have to put into it, but
yes,
it's taking that already good to bring it to that genius level. It's not taking your lowest part to bring it up to genius level.
Right.
Always.
It's looking at what you already are good at.
And I think there are some circumstances too where maybe there is something, and everybody's different cases where all of a sudden you just have this aha moment, and something that you're like, I'm awful at, just all of a sudden just clicks. And we have those kind of moments too. Yep. Is that?
Yes. Right. So I'll tell you one of my biggest blocks.
Yeah.
I'll be a little vulnerable on this one. So one of my big things is I hate doing Facebook Lives.
Okay.
Doing this is not so bad.
Yeah.
Doing it when I'm just me and the camera
Yeah.
is horribly bad. I resist. I know. Hi. It's so much easier because I'm actually having a dialogue with you.
Yeah.
And so often when I'm doing a Facebook Live just solo, I have in the past. It's tough.
You feel weird. It's like
you feel weird. Are you just rambling?
Yeah.
What's the point? There's all of this stuff. Well, I've been wanting to break through this, so I've been pushing, and it's not something that is, it's not natural for me.
Yeah.
And so I've been pushing because I want to break through it. Just because I'm not, it's not a natural expression, or it's not natural for me, doesn't mean I don't need to be doing the work to push through it, right?
Okay.
Because it's a skill that I want to develop.
Mm-hmm. You see the need for it.
I see the need, and I just see the desire, right? I have the desire to develop it. Going and getting my project management certification, which is what my former bosses, before I went out and did my own, that's always what the coaching from my management was, is to do stuff that I didn't have any real desire to do. Mm-hmm. So, backtrack a little bit, briefly, my background's in IT. Okay. And I spent 25 years doing IT consulting work and stuff like that. So, for me, all of my fun stuff was getting into the new projects, getting the project started, getting them rolling, getting them on to go, and moving on to the next project.
Okay.
That was what was fun for me.
Yeah.
And I was coached multiple times from my management to move into some place that I wasn't comfortable, and I really didn't like doing it.
Yeah. So what would you do in those instances? Just suck it up and just do it, or?
Most of the time I had a conversation with my boss that this is not what I enjoy doing.
Okay.
I created a separate side to flow. Mostly boils down to when you go into flow, get into that, understand it, you can then start to own it, and then own it in a way that you be your personal CEO. So you become a CEO of your own company.
You're an advocate for yourself.
So you're an advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you are in flow, going out of flow, when you're in flow long enough and you know what that feels like, the out of flow times feels awkward.
Yeah.
In the beginning, being in flow feels awkward. And after being in that, and you feel good, and it's like, I shouldn't have this much energy.
Yeah.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I should be going to bed, but I want to be doing what I'm doing, whatever it may be like.
It kind of reminds me of, I went to the lake this weekend, but you get in the water, initially it's that first kind of like chill, and like, what? This is cold, what did I do? And then you get used to it, but then you get out again, and then you're like, cold again, what did I do? Yep. Okay.
And it's perfect metaphor for that.
Yeah. Okay.
And, so you're in flow, it's like, this is great, and then you hit a block, you hit a bump, and it could be a knowledge block, so, a lack of knowledge somewhere that blocks it, and then you have to push through it. It could be something that you have no clue what it is, which is where I was. When I was talking about the Facebook Lives, I didn't realize I went actually through work with my coach on this, and come to find out, it's something that happened when I was 14 that had created this whole block to actually doing this. Because if I didn't, and it was basically I used to do magic when I was younger. So I used to do illusions and do magic shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I happened to be in front of 75 people at the age of 14 doing a magic show in front of 75 people and my peers, and I effed it up.
Oh.
And I didn't go. And I promised myself at the age of 14, I promised myself that I would never do anything that was not perfect. I would never put myself in a position
where...
That's
a lot of pressure.
It did. And so, fast forward the next 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Nothing that, if I was in front of an audience, it was going to be perfect. When I'm doing Facebook Lives, it doesn't always occur as perfect.
Yeah. I think it's... That's something that I've struggled with too. But I think, and a lot of people out there can probably empathize when they feel the same too. Like, they want this to be perfect, and it's okay not to be perfect. A friend of mine says, done is better than perfect. And there's a lot of instances where, that's true. But there are some instances where you need that perfection, that I think, that attention to detail.
That's right. And so, we started this section off by, blocks. What are some of the blocks?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because you may hit a block. You could be completely in flow and hit a wall and didn't even see the wall coming.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't even know that the wall existed. And that could literally be a mental block, just your own past coming in and
trying too hard
or doing whatever. Could be a knowledge block, could be a resource block. So I usually run through the standard 5, who, what, when, where, how questions, why questions.
You got to identify it.
You got to identify it. You got to start asking those questions. It's like, why? Well, why is a really bad one to start off with? Mostly because that gives you a reason.
Yeah.
If you say, well, why did that happen? Immediately what's there is a reason, and the reason doesn't do any good. But we walk through it. It's like, well, how is that impacting? When does that show up? Where does it show up? Who, if you actually had the right people in front of you, would that fix the block? What is, so you ask all the questions.
Yeah.
And it's best to do that, just FYI for everybody, the best to do it is with somebody else.
So they can bounce ideas.
So you can actually hear it back from you, and it's not trying to do it in your head.
Yeah.
So it's best to find somebody that would ask those questions of you to flush out what is actually the block, if you don't see what the block actually is.
To keep asking those questions.
And just keep asking. Why is that? Where is it going?
It's kind of annoying, but it's like, I don't know.
Eventually it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And then you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough so the person that you're doing this with, you have enough trust with them that you could, if it is something that happened a long time ago that shows up, we're talking mindset and so much here on the podcast,
the positive mindset.
That positive mindset. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable to a point so that some of that actually shows up so that you can turn it around and actually look at it.
Oh yeah. No, I love that, man. So, wow. And because that vulnerability is such a key part, and I think that in order for us to advance, we do have to be vulnerable with ourselves.
Yep.
So, man, time has flown by.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man, it is.
Oh my gosh,
crazy. Yeah, I know, right? So, any last closing remarks for our guests and Flo? Or how
don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
Right. It really. I love this story. So as you are with dad jokes, I have like analogies out.
Okay. The wazoo.
Yeah, the wazoo. So there's a couple. So one is contributed to Einstein, but I don't know if he actually said it or not. But that's who it's contributed to. And the saying is like, everybody's a genius. Okay, everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will go through its entire life thinking it's stupid.
That's true.
So if you are comparing yourself to somebody else and how somebody else looks like they're supposed to be their flow, and that's not how you do it, don't compare yourself. Find your own flow, because you're going to produce better, higher results there than if you do it any other way.
Yeah.
If you're trying to compare yourself. So ultimately that, and the second one, just because I also like these, is like, so two fish swimming down the river. Meets an old man, or older fish, swimming the opposite direction. The older fish looks at the two young fish, and he's like, hey guys, how's it going? He's like, good. How's the water? Silence, and the two fish swim off. Just a little bit later, the other one looks at it and is like, what's water? It just goes to show that so often that the water we swim in, we don't even know that it's there, right? Which is why it's like, look at what for yourself is what gets you into flow.
Yeah.
What for yourself actually gives you energy, that enlivens you, that has you want to actually get up in the morning, and then go explore that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And the whole idea, everybody's made differently. Yep. So, Well, thank you, Jason, for being on the
Thanks.
show today.
You're welcome.
I really
It was
appreciate
good.
it. And thanks to all you listeners out there. And I do need to ask for a favor. If y'all can please share this episode. We're trying to spread the positivity and help people learn about flow.
That's right.
Click that little share button and share it with your neighbor, your friends, your family.
Very Thanks.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
It has been another fantastic episode of A Whole New World. And as always, if you only learn to do one thing, learn to make a difference. Y'all have a good night.